typically after my first miscarriage, it took 6 to 8 weeks before I got my period back. And so after the second one, I was expecting the same thing. And our plan was that we would start that process once I had my next period, because in these reproductive doctor's offices, they need you to get to certain points in your cycles for them to be able to do different types of tests. Right. So we were doing blood work to follow my HCG levels, the pregnancy hormone, all the way down to 0. And once they got there, we were going to start some of that process. And I was at work, and I was actually in the office with my office mate, who I've talked about earlier in this season because she was so supportive during my losses, especially because she was pregnant during them. And I get a phone call from my gynecologist, and I answer it, fully expecting to hear, great news, your levels are at 0. You can now go to the fertility clinic. Here's the next steps. Then I hear my doctor's voice. And if you've been through anything fertility related, you don't want to hear your doctor's voice on the phone. You want to hear the nurse. Right. The nurses deliver the good news. And my doctor said, so, have you had sex since your last loss? And I said, I mean, once, but we were careful. And she said, not careful enough, you're pregnant. And I broke down. As someone who had been trying for 2 years to have a baby, I was so devastated at the news that I was pregnant, because all that meant to me was loss. Right. And we hadn't done the testing yet, and I knew there was never a part of me that believed that this was a viable pregnancy. Mm-hmm. And she said, I need you to come in now, like right now, leave work. We're going to do more blood work. We've got to figure out what's going on. And then she asked my permission. May I consult with my husband about your case and find out what we can do to see if there's anything we can do to try to save this pregnancy? And I said, of course. And then Rebecca, my office mate, and I were like repeating as a mantra, it was a lab error. It was a lab error. The next one's going to come back at 0. It wasn't a lab error. And so that day, I went to have blood drawn to find out if it was a lab error. Mm-hmm. And they took 20 vials of blood to run all of the different tests to see if it was possible to pinpoint anything that they could do anything about at that point. And the reality that I didn't really understand at the time was that the answer was going to be no, because most of the things that they're able to find and treat are things that you start treating at ovulation or even earlier. You don't just start treating at conception. Some things are, but very few. This episode is sponsored exclusively by G8 by SNP Therapeutics, providing genetics-powered nutrition tailored for every stage of the fertility, pregnancy, and postpartum journeys. With G8, it's not just about a single product or service. It's about a journey toward optimal maternal and fetal health. From their insightful G8 test to their meticulously formulated prenatal vitamin, every step is a leap forward in maternal care. My own journey with G8 has been transformative, bringing a sense of control and peace in an often unpredictable time. They are changing the game in prenatal nutrition, and I'm proud to be part of the movement to provide personalized healthcare for every mother out there. Learn more at undefiningmotherhood.com/G8 and use code Undefining10 for 10% off. 2 days later, I'm in the same office, the same person, and my phone rings again, and she shuts the door, and she puts her arm on me, and she's like, all right, let's do this. Let's see what's going on. And I answer the phone, and my doctor says, you need to go to the emergency room. I think your pregnancy's ectopic. And so John and I spent that night in the emergency room. I got a methotrexate injection, which is something that's used for chemotherapy. And it literally dissolved what was growing in my fallopian tube that would have become a baby had it been in the right part of my uterus. And shortly thereafter, I hadn't even gone back to work yet. They got the results for the testing. And so I went into my doctor's office, and I was really excited about this. There's this very strange thing that happens when you're going through infertility or recurrent pregnancy loss, where you just desperately want them to find a problem, because a problem means a solution. And there's only a 50% chance they're going to find one. So, but I didn't even know that yet then. So I went in to this appointment nervous, but also pretty excited, because I thought, this is it. This is where I'm going to find out what's happening. And then she's going to send me to her husband, and he's going to fix it.
This is after the ectopic pregnancy?
This is after the ectopic pregnancy. Like just a few short days after the ectopic pregnancy. Like I hadn't even returned to work. So I had just had my third loss. The ectopic one, I will say, emotionally was easier for me, because I never once allowed myself to believe that that could be a viable pregnancy. The emergency room was a little hard, a little traumatic, but other than that. So I walked into the office, and the doctor came in shortly behind me, and she had this giant stack of paperwork, because obviously we had lab tests to go through from 20 plus files of blood. And one of the ways in which I'm lucky, and a lot of women are not, is that my doctor has a very good emotional IQ. Mm-hmm. And so she sat down, and she had the paper kind of turned over in her lap so I couldn't see it. And she was like, all right, we're going to go over the results of your test. We're going to go through each one by one, because I know you like to understand exactly what's happening. But before I show them to you, I just need you to understand that medical language can be really cruel. Mm. And I don't have the ability to work outside of it. I have to code certain things into your chart so that your insurance will cover the testing and will cover transitioning over to a specialist. And unfortunately, you're going to see that, and it's going to be really hard. And I just want you to know that I acknowledge that.
Wow, she's good.
She's amazing. And she flipped the paper back over. And not even on the paper. At the very, very top, in giant, bold letters of my super thick medical chart, it said, habitual aborter. And I had so many things going for me in this moment. Mm-hmm. I had an empathetic doctor who had given me warning. I had a degree that lent me to the study of words and language. And from that, because of the women's bodies I studied, the knowledge of the fact that abortion is the word for miscarriage, used in different situations for different types of loss. And even still, I don't know the words. I'm a writer, and I don't know the words. 8 years later,